how many people actually do that. The other thing is it does work offline as well, since what it is a zip file that you download. So you have to download the gadget, you get a zip file, and it has all the resources in it. So granted, some of these gadgets like access online information, like finding out the current weather, but it'll probably still look really pretty offline. So you may not know any information, but you'll be like, oh, look at my pretty gadget, right? So there's an example of one that's really pretty. It has a little snow globe, a little sun, and says what the weather is. And then here's you can see this is a universal gadget, and it's inside the classic frame. And so yeah, so this is similar technologies, except it throws in a little bit C++ for those people who want to write a DLL. So if you guys are like hardcore C++, which is how they like to raise you at USC, yeah, you could give that a try. But today, we're just going to talk about JavaScript and HTML. Yay. No, that doesn't work. Oh, I never use presentation mode.
All right, whatever.
Details.
This is Google Docs, by the way. It's interesting. Okay. So, all right. So now we're going to talk about universal gadgets. So here's a screenshot. So how many people actually have like a iGoogle personalized homepage? Okay. Yay! How many people have gadgets on it? Okay. So what are your favorite gadgets? Anybody? All right. Just stepping up.
I do have that.
YouTube.
What do you have? YouTube? Very nice. Forecast? All right, all right. Do you guys like to search and like find what you want and stuff? Okay, good. Well, I usually just make my own gadgets. But I guess it's easy to search too. Oh, and the cool thing is now too, total aside, hey, go back.
I'm doing this.
It is.
Oh,
That's pretty
okay. There's now a themes API. Because remember they added, so it used to be like iGoogle was kind of ugly, no offense, but they added they added this theme thing. So now like you have this like pretty thing at the top, and then it's all the colors match it. I mean, who has themes here? Raise your hand. So what's your favorite theme?
The time of the day one, it shows the entire globe and what part of the day.
Cool. Okay, what's your theme? What's your current?
Oh yeah, that one's my favorite. So all the like little flyers that we printed out about the workshops and the Google All-Nighter contest, those are the little fox, you know, sitting on the dock. Those are themes. That's one of my other favorite themes.
Yeah, he liked the theme so
The
much
TS box is the best.
that he wanted to steal it for the flyers. And I Googled it, yeah. So the cool thing is there's a themes API now too. So if you want to like make your homepage just like have photos of yourself all over it because you're really vain, you can define your own theme. All it is an XML file, and it just says like what images and what the colors are and stuff. But the cool thing is it's time changing, so you can like change it at different times of day. So in the morning you can like see yourself all unshaven, and then like at night, I don't know, whatever you want to do. Like I'm working on some themes right now that are time-changing panoramas of different cities in the world. So like you can do, right now the Moscow one is out, so you can see Moscow at like 5 different times of the day. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, so there's actually 2 APIs on this page, possibly more. Okay, so what gadgets are, these are all basically a bunch of iframes. So what an iframe is, you guys remember frames, which are really, you know, kind of gross and terrible? So the cool thing is that there's things called iframes. So what does it stand for? Internal frame, maybe? Inline frame. Good, that's a better way to say it. So inline frames are just like basically they section off this part of the web page and say this part of the web page points to some other file online. So really every single one of these boxes here are their own little web pages just assembled onto a page together. And for the most part, they don't know too much about each other or the rest of the world. So really what you can think of gadgets as, there's tiny little web pages that look good at small sizes, and because of the Gadgets API, they have a bit more functionality and libraries that they can work with. Dun, dun, dun. Right, so you don't have to, the cool thing is, it's fun to develop them because you know that anyone can view them because they don't have to download anything, and nobody likes downloading stuff. That's why I don't have Google Desktop yet. And then they provide a way to have user settings and preferences, so you can save some amount of data in the actual user preferences. there is a limit, but you can do a whole lot. Like I usually do gadget games, and then you can save the high score in the actual user preferences. So then you don't have to worry about setting up a database on your server for each user, stuff like that. So that's really nice.
These are user preferences, so that means that every single person who installs your gadget can have their own unique score.
Right.
So this is kind of neat.
Yeah, so I had this game actually that was called, the Profane game, where the purpose of the game was to type as many curse words as you could in 60 seconds.
Wow.
And when I first released it, I didn't have a global high score. I just had individual high scores. And then, you could see on the dig comments, everyone, they wanted a global high score. So then I threw that in there. So then everybody was competing to figure out who could get the highest global high score.
No.
And they were all hacking the JavaScript completely and, running JavaScript in the browser, because you can do some funny stuff in order to, send as many curse words as they could to my system. And then finally somebody actually looked at my code and realized that all you had to do was, point at a URL and give it a new high score number at the end, and it would say
Oh no!
Very secure.
Yes, I know. This was a 2-hour hack that I thought was funny. But it got it got 600 digs or something, so it did pretty well. But people like high scores. They will compete. Somebody wrote I should be in bed with my wife right now, but this is just so damn fun. So look, you could cause marriages to fall apart. That's why we love Google Gadgets. Okay. Okay. So, all right. And then the other cool thing is that, they're subject to the same. Google Gadgets just generally work in most of the top browsers. And as long as you write browser compatible, JavaScript, then they should work there as well. And then, so they don't only have to go on igoogle.com. That's where you usually see them, that's your portal. But the cool thing about gadgets is you can actually embed them on any page. So sometimes I just, if I need, a countdown for my page, which is just some random page somewhere, I'll just go and search in the gadgets directory and look for a countdown, and then you can actually, it'll give you the code to add it to your web page. So it'll just add a little iframe to your web page. In that case, it doesn't have I believe it doesn't have user preferences there. I'm trying to remember. But it doesn't have quite as much capability when it's embedded on a web page, but it's still pretty cool, because then you can think these things, you can make it once for one web page, and then just throw it onto another one as well. So you see a lot of people with blogger blogs have gadgets along the side. So I have one that shows my recent YouTube videos. So yeah, and then a recent thing, actually, I've been working on this lately, is, so you know how Google has advertising, or does ads? So, yeah, right, that. So lately, usually, remember way back when there were banner ads, and banner ads are really annoying? That wasn't us, right? We came in, we brought in the text ads, and then lately we've been bringing in a few more types of ads, because people were a little frustrated with the text ads, because all you can do is text. So what they thought was okay, there's got to be a way, that we can let people define more interactive ads, and that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can give them a standard way to do it. And so they're oh, well, Google Gadgets. Google Gadgets are already little things that you can place all over the page, right? So now we have gadget ads. So what happens is that somebody just writes a gadget, and then that gadget becomes an ad. So I helped somebody work on a gadget for Nissan, and it was a map, and it showed how your car drove. Nissan's car, right? Yeah. So yeah, so that's another cool thing. So gadgets are kind of versatile that way. Okay, next.
You're going to talk about the directory?
Oh yeah, there's a directory. They've seen it. If you guys have searched and add gadgets to your webpage, the cool thing about gadgets too, a lot of them, the code is just out there because people haven't tried to have you heard the term obfuscate? You're talking about that. So obfuscate is a term when people use when they're talking about JavaScript that's been converted so that all the variable names are tiny little names. Yeah. So all the variable names would be A, B, C, D, E, and when you look at it, and there's no spaces, so it's really, really compressed. And so they do this for two reasons. They do this to make the JavaScript smaller, so there's less to download. But they also do it sometimes people do it if they don't want other people to steal their code, right? So we don't like them because we like stealing codes. But so yeah, so you'll sometimes see this obfuscated code. It's really scary. Don't try to interpret it. It's very, very hard. Just go and find an example that's actually, has put their code out. But you should also check and see if they explicitly licensed it. in the XML as well. So yeah, but it's great. It's great to see examples of what other people have made. And also, before you go make a gadget, you should see if it already exists, because we don't need more countdowns in the world. Well, actually, I could use some better ones, but yeah.
Okay.
Always use more. Okay, so here's what it actually looks like. So a gadget is basically, well, first of all, HTML is a type of XML, but a gadget is XML wrapping HTML. So the reason we have this is because we need to define some things that are specific to the gadget, and don't have to do with it just being an HTML page. So things like the title, right? So an HTML page does have a title, but this is the title that's displayed in the gadget when you have in your Google page. It's displayed above the gadget when it's embedded. And the other cool thing is that actually gadgets provide a lot of mechanisms for internationalization. So I haven't talked about that, and I'm not going to, but if you're interested in having your gadget translate into a bunch of different languages, the cool thing about this title thing is that you can actually have a variable here that will get replaced with the correct value for that language. So that's more capable than the HTML head title that we usually have. So that's cool. And there's actually a lot more module preferences as well. There's stuff like the width, the height, whether you want it to scroll, author email. So there's a whole authors directory. You can see who the most popular authors are, and they all have they have badges and stuff. And you can read their bios because you get to write a little bio about yourself. So it's a whole ecosystem. So we have the module preferences, and we also define the user preferences in there, which we'll see later. And then we get to the actual content. So you can have two different types of content. We have type HTML, which is basically, so we define CData. If you guys know XML, CData is just how you house what you do if you don't want to have to worry about escaping stuff in between. So that way we can put all sorts of stuff in between there. And then we have just content type equals URL, and that just points at another web page.
So for example, if you had your favorite blog or something, and you wanted, and let's pretend that you weren't into RSS. So if you just wanted to see a little preview of the blog on your iGoogle homepage to see if it had updated or whatever, you could just point the make a type equals URL gadget, point the href to the URL of the blog, and then you see a little preview of the blog. So that's what a URL gadget is, as opposed to a HTML gadget where you define the HTML yourself in the CData tags.
So that would be pretty much the fastest way to make any web page into a gadget, but it probably wouldn't look that good. Although, do you want to explain what your gadget did? Yeah, it was cool. Come on. Okay, so his gadget, what do you call it, web clip? Yeah. So his gadget actually, because the problem is that just loading a web page in there is you just see the upper left corner, and if the upper left corner has absolutely nothing there, you're like, okay, I'm bored. Then you scroll 600 pixels over, and then you're like, oh, that's what I want. So his gadget let you load in a web page and then kind of move it around and select your window of interest, and then every time you loaded it would remember that, and every time you loaded it in, it would just focus on that one part. I think, didn't you use the usc.edu as an example when you were doing it? Yeah. So you're doing the featured news section or something? Yeah. So that was pretty cool, but that took a little more code than just that, right? Yeah. So there was actually a Google Gadgets University contest last year, and so we had some workshops for that. So if they have one again, you should, submit stuff and win.
Or submit stuff and win at the Google Almighty.
Oh yeah, and our contest. Good plug. Okay.
That's what you get paid for.
Paid? Okay.
Well, you can be.
And stress balls.
Yeah.
Stress balls.
Yeah, just wait. Do you have any questions? Okay. All right. Okay. So what I was talking about, user preferences, they're really cool. They make it possible to do a lot of customization that would otherwise be painful, and everyone would have to reinvent the wheel every time and set up stuff on their server. So here's some examples, right? So we have a couple different data types for user preferences. We have list, which is just pipe delimited. Where's the whiteboard marker? Drawing shit. Okay. So a list is just a bunch of values, and they're just separated by the pipes, So you can basically think of that as an array, and you can parse that into an array. Then we have an enum. Third time in charge. English is apparently my native language. Okay. So, so and num would basically be like a drop down. So in this example, we see like the num values here, and then you see that corresponds to this drop down here. So that's if you only want them to pick one of n possible values for that user preference. Then the other thing we have is a bool, and that would manifest itself as a checkbox. And then the most basic one would be a string. So here we use the name is a string, the photo is a string. So you can see name, display name. So that's like, the name is what you're going to refer to it as in the code. The display name is how you actually want it to show up in the edit settings. And then you can say whether it's required. You can also specify, like, so default value here as well. I believe if it doesn't have a default value, when you load in a gadget, it'll actually force you to pick some preferences before it loads it in.
If they're required.
Nice.
So you can
yeah,
see
sorry.
that this. So we're using user preferences, which once again are per user. So that means that he entered his name here as Rowan, and so every time he loads this gadget, it's gonna print out his name, and he can also pick his favorite color as the background, and whether or not he wants to show the photo. And then I could come along and install the gadget, and have a completely different color, and my name, of course, not Rowan, and
My
so
name
on.
is Rowan.
You want your name to be Rowan? Oh, okay. And so that's the power of user preferences.
Right. So this is a very appealing gadget for a 5-year-old. They get a big kick out of it. Hey, Rowan. Okay, next. Okay, so this, I believe you guys went into a little bit, tiny bit. So who knows what the XML HTTP request object is?
A little bit.
Something.
A little bit, yeah? Do you want to explain it?
I guess it's basically trying to send some kind of information to the server to enter. So the server will reply with some sort of request to make it faster.
Okay. Right. So yeah, basically what it is that you have your web page, right? And then your web page wants to get data from the server, right? There's a web page. It wants to get data from the server, so it has to use this special thing called XML HTTP request. So it creates a request, and a request has URL. So this is going to go into the HTTP protocol. All right, so you can either just point it to a URL and get back the contents of that URL, or you can do something called a post request, where you point it at a URL and then you send some data as well, and then also get back response. Right? So there you go. So you go da, and then you go da. Yay! Okay.
And so the reason that's valuable is because it happens. You don't have to see the entire gadget or even web page load again in order to see data pulled from the server.
Right. So this is the entire. Ajax is basically equated with the phrase like Web 2.0 now, because when you think of a Web 2.0 app, it's an app that doesn't reload all the time. Like when you think about the 90s apps, they're just constantly like reload. You can see it at the bottom of your status bar, and the screen blanks out, and you have to wait for the next thing. So in the Web 2.0 world, there's always something on the screen, right? And it's usually just some portion of the screen that's reloading. So like maybe in this, in this section of the screen, it's reloading, the stock prices, but you're working over here, so you don't care about that, right? And then you press enter, and it sends a request, and when it comes back, then it reloads. So using this, you never actually have to reload the entire page. You just reload whatever data has changed. So it's pretty powerful. So because of that, Google Gadgets has some wrapper functions for it, and they actually have additional capability beyond the usual thing. So a usual XML HTTP request can only,
I want to discuss what you said about XML HTTP request. You said that you have to reload the page, but when you're using the maps service, you just drag the map and the new tiles come up. So you're not actually reloading the page, but in a sense you are updating your XML. You're adding data to your XML.
Right. So the Maps API, well actually,
No, in a sense, Ajax, if you talk about Ajax,
right.
it's not about refreshing the page. It's about refreshing your div elements, adding more data to your div, and removing
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Ajax means that you don't have to
It's
refresh the
asynchronous,
page.
yeah.
You get to refresh the data instead. So the Maps API, we can talk about how that one works on
Don't get all night.
Wednesday. Yeah, because it's actually pretty interesting because I've spent a good portion of my life looking at their code now. Yeah, so Google Gadgets has a couple functions for it. It has fetch content if you're getting just something that's not XML and it's text or CSV, something like that. Fetch XML content, which is specifically targeted for XML because it'll parse it as an XML document when it comes back. And then these functions actually are able to make cross-domain requests. So usually with an XML HR, you can only make a request on your own domain, right, on your own server. This is due to the cross-domain security policy, right? So Google Gadget, since it goes through a Google proxy, is able to get rid of that requirement. So it's basically you can get XML from any domain. So it's pretty nifty. So it's basically like super duper XML HR with unlimited abilities.
So if you don't understand all this right now, that's okay because we're going to go through a little bit more in our tutorial. But
Right. Yeah, and this would be one of the final parts of the workshop. But this is actually an example. So we'll just show. So it just does fetches XML from a URL, and then it gives it a callback function because this may take some time. So you don't want to hold execution of your script. So you say like, okay, this is what I want you to do, and here's the function, and when you come back, call this function. Okay? So then when it comes back, it calls this function, passes in the response XML element, and then it just parses through that, gets the information, and writes it to the screen. Okay, so also the Gadgets API just comes with a few user interface features that were used kind of frequently. The one that I've actually used the most is the tabs. Everybody loves tabs, especially when you have like a tiny amount of space. So when you add tabs, then you can like, add like 3 times the amount of space to that little gadget. So this is an example of that there. And then there's some ones that are kind of oriented for games. So that would be the drag and the grid library. I think those are actually written by one of the guys that's written the most games gadgets. So that's like, you can make like, a draggable tic-tac-toe. Or any other games where you drag stuff around in the grid. Like chess. You do that in chess.
just
I don't know how to play chess.
Tic-tac-toe is a bad example. You don't drag. Never mind.
Oh yeah, okay, in that one. Sorry, I've only played the gadget version. I forget. And then mini messages, they made just because a lot of people just want to quickly like inform their users about something. So they're pretty simple, but they're actually pretty useful. So
this is just like a smattering of the little external libraries that you
yeah. All right. But you guys have all played with gadgets. Has anybody actually not seen a Google gadget? All right. So let's play with a couple of them.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So, oh no, I don't have a game.
Such a shame
I know.
Yeah.
to be without a game. Let's make it profane.
All right, let's try. Oh yeah, I don't have a main game. Okay. All right, so this is a game.
It's like Boggle.
Oh god, okay, I'm not supposed to show that. So this is a game that uses are you guys familiar with Urban Dictionary? It's a dictionary that defines the slang. So this is basically Boggle, except it'll grab the Urban Dictionary definition of every word you submit. But a lot of them are kind of not safe for work. So luckily I have a user preference, so we're gonna go with the word that's nice, safe dictionary instead. You guys can do the bad one later.
Ruin your marriage.
Yeah. So that's an example of a game, and you can see like I have a high score is 0 right now because I actually haven't played this since I had this account. But as I play it every day, like my high score will change. And then once the game ends, it'll update. So there's an example here. This is another. This is a kind of like number munchers. If you ever played number munchers, except you're munching photos instead. This also has, this is a Flash, so if you guys like Flash, you can totally embed Flash inside. Oh god. Okay, and if that's your preferred development platform. Right, so that one also has high score. Then we have crossword of the day, that's a popular one. This one I believe is also Flash. Is it? Maybe it's not. Yeah, okay, this one actually isn't Flash, this one's Ajax. This was written by a USC person, etc. So these are gadgets. So you can go, if you've never played with them, go to igoogle.com, add some gadgets, and see how to interact with them. And we're going to go, I think we're going to start the workshop. That was the end of it, right?
Was it?
Yeah.
All right.
So here's, okay, so basically, whenever you're developing with any of the Google APIs,
Oops.
can you get the right one? It needs an S. You should use our developer website. The main URL is code.google.com. Is it on the shirt? Is it on the back?
Yes, it is.
Yay, okay. Everyone write it down.
Success today.
Or whatever I had. So this site has the documentation and like the sample code for all of our APIs. And actually, if you don't know what APIs we have, this is a great tool we have that lets you kind of just search through all the APIs. And we've got like some categories here or some tags.
Just to give you an idea of if you participate in the contest, just everything you'll have at your disposal to use. We got a huge list here. You can see that you can, everything from Android, the Google Data APIs, the Google Ajax APIs, the Google Base and Calendar and Desktop and Gadgets and Maps.
There's a code search. Well, code search feeds. If you guys haven't used code search, it's pretty cool. It actually only searches code that Google has found online. So if you want, I always use it when I want examples of like using like maybe like a certain Java class or something. So you can go to the code search and then be like Lang Java and then like search for the function. But you can do some kind of gadget which makes it easier. You know, you can do like a code search gadget which makes it easier to do your homework or whatever. So let's go to the gadget page.
This is it.
Oh yeah, good point. So here we have our landing page. At the bottom you can see some featured projects. There's some user group posts. This is our blog if you actually are really interested and want to like keep up to date with what's going on in the gadgets world. But then the main links at the top to pay attention to are the documentation, the FAQ, frequently asked questions. Nobody ever checks these, so please check these. Because the most frequently asked questions I get are the questions that are in the frequently asked questions. Therefore, I have to conclude that people aren't reading them, right? So please read them. Otherwise, I'll just be like, here you go, it's an FAQ. And so then we have the blog and the group, etc. So let's go to the docs. And most of our APIs are all set up the same way, so you should get pretty used to it once you start using an API. So the gadgets docs are pretty long, pretty good. We're going to start on getting started today. And they actually have this inline Google Gadget Editor here, which is great because it allows you to write the code and just immediately preview it, so you don't have to worry. So luckily, we don't have to set up any kind of hosting right now. Google will host it for us. This is always a good thing because Google is pretty good with bandwidth. So always a Google host your things if it's possible.
How can you beat free?
It's true.
So this is the Google Gadget Editor. It's just a really simple tool that's kind of ideal for developing gadgets, simply because instead of having to go and make modifications, save, and reload your iGoogle homepage after the caching limit has expired, and it's just a big pain in the butt. You have this nice little preview tab here. So this, all we expect here is a little gadget that you see the C data tags that we introduced earlier, and we see Hello World in the middle of it.
Preview.
So we click the preview tab here, and
Yay.
we see Hello World. Now we can, so this is just HTML content, so we can modify this slightly and put like H1 tags around, for example. And we click preview, and we see instantly the modified result, which is of course Hello World in the level 1 header.
All right, so everyone, if you haven't already, start up your workstations and go to this, find this. So tip is to go to code.google.com. Well, or you just search for gadgets in the search bar. Go to the page, go to docs, and then go to getting started. We should make a look for it.
Okay. So I should like hide the URL.
Yeah, hide the URL. Wouldn't show 'em. I mean.
All right, so yeah, we'll give you a minute to go here, but
Does anyone have any questions while we're getting?
remember, all questions to the walls.
No. So there's a couple different. There's a dynamic height. Well, so there's a dynamic height library. I don't think it has dynamic width, but it will adjust like height dynamically.
There's a width attribute.
There's a width attribute. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So there's a width attribute. So you set like what width you want it. But the thing is, it depends on the person's screen. So that isn't necessarily used all the time. So it's a little tricky when you're designing these things. The best thing to do is to try it out, see what they look like, maybe try and center it.
It depends on the container as well. So
Yeah.
we've been concentrating on iGoogle, which is a container for gadgets. So it hosts gadgets. So iGoogle, by default, has gadgets in 3 rows that are, I guess, equally wide. But you can actually go into your preferences for iGoogle and say that I want one extra long column, and then I want. So you can change it from a 3-column to a 2-column, one that's very large, and there's all kinds of those different little setups.
Right. So if you can, it's best to like use kind of smart CSS that's maybe like doing like 100% and filling whatever width it has. The other thing, actually, when I've been working on the gadget ads, is there's a multi-size library. I'm not sure how many people use that, if that's just for gadget ads, but that's because gadget ads come in like 5 different sizes. So when the gadget ad actually starts up, it senses what size it is, and then what we do is we load in a different CSS file for each of those sizes. So that's something a little special we do for gadget ads. Okay, does anybody actually need help finding that gadget editor? They got it.
They're all Swift. They're there already.
Are they? Okay.
Program
So-
their first example.
We thought it would be cute and clever if we made our like gadget tutorial into a gadget, kind of. Yeah. So anyway, this is the main developer workshops site here. I guess you guys have seen it hopefully already. Oh, this is my tea house fox up here. I like him. Anyway, so
That's because you like foxes.
right, and we've linked from the bottom. We've linked to a tutorial gadget. So can everyone go to googleworkshops.googlemashups.com, and you'll see this little.
I'll give them that URL.
Can you Google it?
No.
I doubt it.
I don't know. I think it's been indexed by too much. Maybe. Or crawlers.
You can get that eventually.
Oh, this one's so much better.
You always get one bad.
I know. I start off with the wrong one, and then like it's too
Every
late.
single time. Okay, so if you go to this site, you should see this link at the bottom that says click here to see the tutorial gadget. And when you click, you'll see a little gadget that has some instructions. And we're going to go through those instructions together right now to help you get better acquainted with the Google Gadgets API spec.
So the first question is how many people are familiar with lolcats?
Dude.
Yes.
Raise your hands. All right. So we're going to introduce some people. That's good. Part of this workshop is about introducing you to lolcats.
Yes.
And pictures.
Programming and pop culture.
Come on, you.
Ooh, loneliness and cheeseburgers are a dangerous mix.
Oh my god.
There's a,
Huh? I give him
So
hard.
lolcats is just a bunch of pictures that have captions in them that are really dumb, but awesome.
Seem to go hand in hand.
most of them are about cats. You can tell.
Some of them are about cheeseburgers.
No cats.
Okay. All right. Purely for our music. So, if nothing else, you'll be introduced to an amazingly funny site. So here we have this is a workshop basically. So it goes from.
Everyone at this page right now? More or less?
All right.
Perfect.
So now when we start at the workshop part, people might go at different paces. So I propose that, I guess I'll describe the steps and they go from easiest to hardest. Some of you might go really fast if you have experience. Some of you, if you're new to JavaScript, probably take you a little longer. And if you're like really good at JavaScript and you want like a challenge, I will totally give you a challenge. Just I'll whisper it in your ear, so let me know.
She'll do it too.
Yeah. So let me just go through the steps and then we'll just start working. And so when you have a question, just raise your hand.
Should make you change select boxes options
Alright.
dynamically.
You have to do
I want to make it bigger. What?
Aw.
Okay. All right. So the first one should be really easy. All right. Oh, and I added little check boxes. I didn't hook it up to the user preferences, but you're welcome to check the boxes to let yourself know that you completed it. This was a 2-minute gadget. And so the first thing is just to change the hello world to say lolcat. Okay. So that way you just know that you've used the gadget editor correctly. Next thing is to grab a picture, grab a URL from lolcats and display it in the gadget. You can either do that by HTML or by writing the HTML into like a div element. So you can do inner HTML, you can do document create element image, or you can just write the HTML yourself, image src equals blah. You might want to give it an ID because we're going to be using it later, and you know how you need the ID in order to like interact with it later. So then you say make a button that says give me lols. When I press a button, it will load in a new image. So what you want to do there is get a couple URLs, store them in JavaScript array, and then maybe just sequence through that or like grab a random one from that array. So you're going to have to rewrite the source of the image that you already put there. So you might want to think about that when you're doing like the second step. Oh, I messed up that shit before. Okay. So the next thing is to add a user preference for the user's name. Make it have a default value of you. And then display highs plus the value of that user pref. And then I said make the div blue with white text. That's basically just to test like that you know how to do CSS. You can assign the style dynamically by doing like .style, .background color to a DOM element. The next thing is to have a text input for the user to put in their name and a button that says ICANN has first name. When the user presses the button, save their name to this is like the thing that we saw before with the high row on with the dog. So when they press the button, save the name to the preferences and refresh the welcome message. So now it says, hi is your name. The next thing we're going to do is another user preference. For this one, we're going to do hidden. Because the reason we have hidden is because if it's not hidden, then people can edit it. So I always have my high scores be hidden because I don't want people editing their own high scores because that's not cool because they got to work for it. So you make it a hidden user preference, and that way it won't show up when they're editing their preferences. So you add a hidden user preference for num lols. Each time they click the Gimme Lols button, increment that user preference and save it back, and then actually display what that value is in a div with so-and-so style. The next thing to do is use some events. I noticed you had a slide on events. So add mouse over and mouse out events to one of the divs so that when the user scrolls over the div, it basically changes style. You can even have it change the content if you want to get fancy. And then when they mouse back over, it goes back to normal. So it'd be really cool if you like moused over and it turned into like a crazy cat, and then when you moused over, it went back to normal. The next thing to do is to actually use the tabs library that we were talking about. And so just to split the user interface into 2 tabs. So a lot of times you do this like, you might have a tab for like configuration of the gadget. So it's a tab that isn't the default one. So that's what we're going to have is one that has a picture and the welcome message, and then one that has like the actual name changer because they don't want to see that all the time. They probably don't need it most of the time. You'd also do like a little about the author in there. Like, hi, I like cats. The next thing we want to do is use the fetch XML content function to actually get the lolcats feed. How many of you are familiar with RSS? All right, sweet. Good. So the lolcats has an RSS feed, and you can find that by looking for the giant orange circle or square.
Squircle.
Squircle. And this will actually open in FeedBurner, but then you can just do view feed XML and get the output here. And so if you actually look at this, you can see it has,
XML.
It actually has a media. This thing right here is what you want. This is a media in the media namespace, and it has the actual URL to the picture. So it might be a little annoying to parse, but you can do it. I believe in you. Where is it? Okay, cool. And so replace, instead of that picture we had that was like generated from that JavaScript array, you're basically going to replace that with pictures from the actual feed. And then the final thing to do is to create a web page. You can put it like on googlepages.com that has the gadget embedded inside of it. So this is just an example of how you can put the gadgets elsewhere. And so if you look in the documentation, it will actually link you to the page that will give you the script to do that. So now begin. Any questions?